Mishnah Torah, the Rambam. Good morning to if anybody's joining us online. And the Mishnah Torah, the Rambam is called the Yad HaChazak. There's 14 books, Strong Arm, by Maimonides, and we're looking at a chart which shows the 14 sections, the 14 books, and the subsections of each one. We're going to just do a brief survey of those, and then the point is to get into our topic. We were discussing the fundamentals of Judaism and looking at Hilchot Yesodei HaTorah, and more specifically, we're going to be starting with Hilchot Tshuva. So let's start at the beginning. Sefer Hamada, knowledge, starts off with Yesodei HaTorah, literally foundations of the Torah, belief in God and other Jewish principles of faith. This is I don't know who wrote this, but it's sort of like a translation and like giving you the general topic. Hilchot Deot. It has the same word in it, Mada, but it doesn't mean knowledge. As you can see, it refers to behavior. And the Rambam uses the same word. It's very interesting usage in the Hebrew. It's kind of unique to the Rambam. He made this up, this whole categorization system of 14 books. You know, what was the previous organizational system before the Rambam made this up in the 12th century? What was it? What was the previous organizational structure?
Within the order based on Mishnah. Right?
That's right. The Mishnah, the 6 orders of the Mishnah, the Talmud used that same system, the same 63 Masechtot in our count, in the 6 orders. And the Rambam said, we got to restructure things. And what he decided to create this first book, that has the foundations of the Torah, Deot, which means general proper behavior. That's where you're going to find the Rambam's golden rule. You might have heard of that. What's the golden rule?
The golden rule is treat others as you want to be.
Good. That's actually known as the golden rule, not from a Jewish source. But the Rambam does speak about the Shvil HaZahav, golden path. And there he talks about how we should always strive to be balanced, be in the middle. It's great. We have it translated, of course. You should, not go to the extreme in any one of the character traits. For example, don't be too miserly with your money. On the other hand, don't be too grandiose, giving away everything that you have and you don't have anything left for yourself. So there's those two extremes. He said the best is to find the middle, except for one exception.
Link Torah?
No, when we're talking about character traits here.
Character,
right? Like miserly or anybody know what character trait are you supposed to be extreme about?
There is no border. What is it?
Being a philosopher or not?
No.
It's
Humble?
It's with regards.
Humble's good. That's one. You're right.
I mean, I'm the most humble guy I know. Everyone knows I'm the most humble guy that anyone knows.
We can see that.
Thank you.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. So like Moshe is praised as being the most humble guy ever. So imagine that, a public leader like Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's humble. So that's one extreme. Good, but there's one other. The Rambam speaks about
with the
at length.
people who are coming against the religion. You're supposed to like
No,
easy on
read the book. Okay, I know I say that a lot about the Tanakh. Now I'm saying the Rambam. Definitely, you can read the book. It's a book that can be read. It's not like the Talmud, which is, I said, we put it. This is not a Talmud class. There's other classes about Talmud. There's a lot that it's a central book, but it takes some training to get there to be able to approach it. You can do that too. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but that this is totally approachable. This is, it's like reading the Tanakh. Tanakh also needs a commentary. You also need to understand what you're reading. And the Rambam too, you need to, but once we have translations into English, you can just, open it up and you don't need to do too much commentary. So by all means, access this book. It's great. And the answer to my trivia question was anger. Anger. Stay away
you should
from
always
anger.
get super angry.
Away.
Exactly.
And jealousy?
Bro,
No, jealousy, he doesn't say that you have to go to the one extreme. Jealousy, maybe there's a time to be jealous. Someone was saying to be jealous for the sake of God, right? But anger, he says, is bad. There has a place he discusses it also in the Moreh Nevuchim. He says when you have to show anger, right, good. You have to show anger to others, like for educational purposes. But inside, anger is, the person that gets punished most by the anger is yourself, because it affects you more than anybody else. And it was just an interesting tidbit. Yeah.
So I can imagine in war, anger is quite important. And I'm sure the
yeah.
Rambam was quite familiar with war, considering where and when he lived.
Of course. It's interesting. I don't know if anger is the only motivating, factor. Definitely indignation.
You really learn about if you are in anger. You don't think too much if you are in anger. You just run.
Right.
Anyways,
That's an interesting topic to discuss.
I remember earlier the Rob mentioned that the Rambam didn't give sources for all of his rulings on things.
Correct.
Has anyone ever set out in a commentary to maybe hyperlink where all of his rulings came from? Is there a commentary like that?
Is there one? There must be 30.
Okay.
There are books ever since the Rambam's book was written, and it caused quite a stir in the Jewish world, as I described why. Numerous commentaries in every generation tried to write books and scholarship about the Rambam's rulings, about where he got it from, why he took it this way as opposed to other people who took it other ways, and the differences between him and 100%. The Rambam it's a whole nother subject of study. So if up until the Rambam and in parallel to this corpus of or this area of research, the Rambam, as I said to you the other day, he had a vision that maybe people would just stop studying the Talmud and only study his book. Didn't work. And so you have in parallel people studying the Talmud and all the commentaries and trying to pull equivalent to what the Rambam did, to pull the halacha from it and continue to study the Talmud and continue to study the Talmud. And now we have a double load. Because we take the Rambam.
We could make it work. We could just stop studying the Talmud.
Good luck.
That's all we would have to do.
Good luck. You'll see that. And then so I was saying, in equivalent, you have an entire level or focal point for Talmudic, rabbinic writing, understanding the Judaism, and that is around the Rambam and what he wrote and where he got it from and what do we agree with him? Do we disagree with him? So now the Torah study just expanded, almost doubled, which is amazing. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
And so there's an entire literature about Talmudic interpretation and another entire literature about Rambam interpretation of his Yad HaChazakah. The classic edition of the Rambam, I mean, this is strange, it's one volume. The classic edition of the Rambam is over here. Excuse me. Thank you. Okay. This is the class. Thank you so much. Yes, this is. As you can see, it's 6 volumes and 7. 6 volumes.
And the 7.
That's one book. Okay. Yeah. Becomes why? Everybody grab one and open it up. It doesn't matter which section we're in. I just want to show you the structure of the book.
I meant which book is the 6 volumes on.
I'll talk to you about the 7th volume in a second. But the 6 volumes, they're all, the 14 books are divided up. It took them 6 full volumes to get the Rambam's one book. Why?
Commentary.
Look, the page you're looking at, the standard page. Only this is the words of the Rambam. Everything on the right, everything on the left, everything on the bottom is all commentaries discussing exactly what Russell said. Did anybody do that? And then in the back, there's more, which is only commentary. And to this day, books are written about the Rambam. This recent scholar who just recently passed away, Rabinovich, was originally from Canada. Actually, he was a rabbi in Canada. He's an American, he was a rabbi in Canada, a rabbi in England, and then became Rosh Yeshiva in Israel. And before he died, he finished his magnum opus on the Rambam. He wrote a commentary on the Rambam. I think it's like 30 volumes.
Wow.
Okay, so maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe 20. I don't know exactly, but it's a nice. So the commentaries on the Rambam are so big, and that's why it took 6 volumes to get the one book of 1,000 chapters There's books of 1,000 chapters. Not so many. But anyways, it is a big book, no question about it. But not this book, not 6 volumes work. It's because of all the commentary. Okay, the 7th book that I intrigued you with is this one. This one, it looks just the same. They put it as part of the set. But what it is, I don't know if you can see from there, it's called Sefer HaMitzvot. That's his first blush, his work on the list of the mitzvot. The one we have translated here and there in 2 places, to much to Moshe's chagrin. The
that people were burning?
No. No, not at all. They were burning this. They were burning his major, all of his works. But the list of mitzvot, we mentioned it before. That's when his first book as a youngster. It was written in Arabic. He before the Yad HaChazakah, before his major work, he wrote a list of the mitzvot. In the introduction, he wrote his rules about how to count, what are the principles for what goes into the 613 and what doesn't. And he wrote a list of 14 principles, and that's also in this book. And as you can see, actually, here too, all this is commentary. This page doesn't have any of the Rambam's writing either. Here, a little bit of the Rambam's words, and the whole thing is commentary. Pages and pages of scholarship discussing the topics about how to count the mitzvot and what goes in. And then when this is all the introduction, when he actually gets to the book itself, here it is. This is the beginning, about halfway through this volume. We get the actual list of the Rambam's mitzvot. And again, the Rambam's, his count is just in the middle. All around it is commentary. See that? So that's why it's in the set, because it's the Rambam's works, but it's not actually part of the Mishnah Torah. It's a separate book. It's the precursor to the Rambam's. Here there's no commentary. For some reason, on these mitzvot, it's only the mitzvot. So this is just a list. You see this page? That it doesn't have any commentary. There are some pages like that. It's not, but then you have a little bit of commentary on this page, and then lots of commentary. Only commentary. So that's why it's its own separate book, when really all it is a very small, 613 paragraphs, pretty much. But it becomes its own separate volume, and this is the classic edition of the Rambam, 6 or 7 volumes. Next questions, yeah.
Okay, so comparing the 2 papers that we were given, I counted in the English one 84 and the Hebrew one 83, and I was able to find that the Hebrew one is missing Seder Tefillah.
Excellent. Good question. Good work. Seder Tefillot, as the words in Hebrew indicate,
Is the order of prayer.
it's the order of prayers. So it's not the law. If you look earlier in section number 2, that's the laws of tefillah, of prayer and the priestly blessings.
I know. It's,
So
it's
this is
missing
not
a
the-
hava. In the Hebrew one, there's only 6 things in a hava.
Number 7 on the Hebrew page is tefillah ubirkas kohani, and so what you have, in the what called the order of prayers, it's not actually a list of laws. The Rambam decided to, after telling you all the laws of prayer and the laws of tefillah and the laws of tzedakah, at the end he added as an addendum, basically a sidur.
Oh, very nice.
It's the sidur of the Rambam. He says, this is what a normal prayer looks like. After I've told you all the laws, that's called Seder Tefillah. It's number 7 on your page.
People print a
Do you want one?
Rambam.
Please. One of each. Sure. One of each.
Which
You
one,
have?
though?
Yeah.
I have this one.
Okay, so give me the extra.
Are there any publishers that print a Rambam Sidur? Or no?
Not that I know of.
Isn't
No,
that
there's something similar, but
Livorno Sidur, or is that something?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the Livorno is. Do you understand, Moshe? That's why they didn't get
Yes.
counted in, because it's not really one of those, chapters of the laws. Yeah. Another question. Amos?
You said that there is a 14 principles. You just mentioned that what he write about how to choose the mitzvot,
To count as
to
a 6.
count them, or,
Yeah.
or the rule how to pick up the mitzvot from the text.
Correct.
There is such a
Yeah.
sidur.
Where we can Can you tell us?
It's
about
right there in the
something?
book right
In the
behind
book,
you. And,
Okay. It will
this
be in
is
the book. Yeah.
this is the translation of the book of the mitzvot. The truth is, I'm not sure if he has the introductory principles. You see, there's one volume for the positive commandments, one volume for the negative commandments. My question is, does he have that introductory essay where he gives you the principles? Looks like he doesn't, unfortunately. I wonder if that's translated anywhere else. You're gonna look for it for us, Russell, online. I don't know if anybody else. This doesn't have that principles.
We'd love to make it ourselves.
That's right. Make a translation of it. It's it's great. It's great. It's a great piece of scholarship. I've studied it. Not the whole thing, but I studied the sections of it in great detail.
I really love that translation of Rambam's Commandments, because first off, it's actually those books are quite old. The set cost 8 guineas brand new. Exactly. And I was researching the Rav who did the translation, and the Rav who did the translation.
One second. Yeah.
The
Rav Shavel, yeah, he's amazing.
yeah. He was it was incredible. Yes, it was a British thing.
So we show me for a second.
£1 5 new pence. That's how much a guinea is. That's all you need to know.
This is in volume
I'll explain to you.
about the negative commandments. And here it is, it's at the back. The 14 principles of Maimonides. So he did do it. For some reason he put it at the end of the book instead of the beginning. Here it is, the 14 principles of Maimonides about how to count. It's usually published at the beginning of the book of the mitzvot. That's why I looked for it there. But he put it here at the end of the book that has the negative commandments. And here they are translated. So, mystery solved. We found it. Okay.
I just found it online as well.
And it's online as well.
On
Okay.
Chabad's website.
On Chabad website?
Yes.
Oh, nice.
This
nice.
Rambam guy seems pretty popular.
Yeah, listen, to make a restatement of the entire Torah, it's a pretty big deal. He knew, not everybody could do that. You need to have quite a breadth of knowledge and depth of understanding. And, in his day, he didn't have the Rambam to work off of. Right? He had to do all the legwork himself and create this thing, pulling from the Talmud, translating from all the languages and all the different commentaries that he had, all his teachers that he had, and he was running away from the Al-Muhaddin, the religious extremists that were, giving his father trouble, and then ultimately he escaped that and made his way to Egypt. But then he had to make a living. He worked for a living. He wasn't sitting in Kola all day. What did he do?
He was a doctor. The doctor.
He was a doctor. He was a doctor, and then he ultimately
He was
became the
the
doctor of the
Sultan.
Sultan. And he has a letter where he describes his day. It's beautiful. His schedule, his daily schedule.
What was
He
it?
said, sorry.
What is this?
There's another. There's also another volume of the Rambam's letters, which is fascinating. And from there come the famous letter to it's called the Epistle to Yemen, right? Because the Yemenite community needed guidance, and he helped them. I mentioned that another day. In any case, in his schedule, he talks about how he gets up early in the morning and studies with people before Shacharit in his Beit Midrash, and he davens with them, and then he has to go to take care of the Sultan in the palace. And there, he's inundated with people asking him for medical advice and giving whatever he does. He goes home and he receives people also as a doctor and as a rabbi. And then, he grabs a few moments in between to learn and to teach and to answer the letters that he gets. And until he really describes, I can't remember it all off by heart. We can find it online, and there's definitely a translation of that letter. I don't know if all the letters of the Rambam, probably all of them have been translated. And he goes till late at night, and the truth is funny because the Rambam says you have to sleep 8 hours a night. A person should divide his 24 hours into three, 8 hours for sleeping and eating, 8 hours for work, and 8 hours for learning and davening and the religious stuff. And I don't know how he actually practiced that because he was such a busy man. But and then he gave us this amazing statement of Torah. Russell, what did you want
That
to?
was actually my question: was how much he slept at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but officially it's in the book that you must sleep 8 hours a night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7 8 hours for sleeping and eating.
Yeah. Okay, so 7 hours, whatever. But
Maybe he just ate a lot and didn't sleep as much.
Well,
could be. Yeshua,
I-
could be.
I was thinking about like free time in here in yeshiva, and I realized, and this is probably how the Rambam did it, is probably most of his Torah study wasn't sitting down, opening a book, and studying for an hour or 2 hours. A lot of it was probably, well, I have 5 minutes before I have to do this. Pulls out just a piece of paper from his pocket and starts studying it.
Yeah. So I imagine that he. Jacob, do you get these?
Yep, unless these are
The
Hershey.
Hebrew and English?
They are.
I already have mine.
You do have yours? Oh,
So it's your property. There's no space.
perfect.
Yeah.
Someone left. We've been taking care of you. We know you were here, and welcome. In any case, I imagine Moshe that the Rambam had different periods in his life. Yeah, he wasn't always working for the Sultan, and there were periods where he was totally devoted to Torah study. He couldn't create this work in 5 minutes here and there. You can review, you can answer questions in 5 minutes. You can
write
Study.
a letter or
Yeah.
start part of the letter, but you can't do the whole Mishnah Torah.
Yeah, but definitely, it's inspiring to see that what you can accomplish when Rambam could accomplish. Maybe we can be a little bit like Rambam. Okay, so back to our order of the Yad HaChazakah. We're just looking at the titles now. Soon we're gonna open up the book itself and read the section. But this is by way of introduction. I always like to see the structure. So we were in Sefer Hamada, book number 1. First section, Yesodei HaTorah, the foundations of the Torah. So I mentioned that the other class. Then there's Deot. We talked about general proper behavior. We said there he talks about the golden rule of Judaism, the golden path, he calls it, between the different extremes of behavior, and many good advice about how to live your life in character and improve your character. Next is number 3, Laws of Talmud Torah study. It's a mitzvah. It's one of the 613. But he gives it here. He gives it an entire section, different types of Torah study, and when and where and how much, and etc. Number 4, Avodah Zarah. It's fascinating that this is the first book, which is the book of knowledge. It's foundational stuff. Avodah Zarah, you're not allowed to worship idols, right? We said one of the 13 principles was that God's might, God's power. We said that you don't pray to anybody else except to Him. The laws of Avodah Zarah is where that principle appears, because don't pray to anybody. And the last one, Hilchot Tshuva, which we're going to open up presently after we go through look at the list a little longer, is a major innovation of the Rambam. Nobody ever before set aside an entire section to treat this topic head on, and all the different sides of it, the law and philosophy of repentance. We're not going to be studying the laws now. This is not a halacha class, but the philosophy of repentance is essential for understanding the last group of the 13 principles, which we mentioned the other day, the last group that has to do with reward and punishment, and repentance is touching on that topic. And so he has this, and I think the last chapter, chapter 10 of the Laws of Tshuva, is the most beautiful chapter in the entire book. It's amazing. You may
Each of these sections is in itself divided into chapters.
Exactly. The Laws of Tshuva has 10 chapters. And some people have the custom to read, to learn one of the chapters every day of the 10 days of repentance. Because it works out, because there's 10 days and 10 chapters of the Rambam. Right, exactly. So each one of these has chapters. The number of chapters doesn't appear anywhere on this page. I'm sorry. I thought it did, but I was wrong. That's just the page number, not the chapter, the number of chapters. Okay, we'll have to make up a new chart, or you can go through it. Open up the book and write down next to each one how many chapters each one is. As I told you, the sum total of all the chapters is 1,000. Rambam made exactly 1,000. Yeah, he was a master, organizational guy. The sum total comes to 1,000. I don't know exactly how many are each one. Okay, the question someone wanted to say?
I have a question. I still kind of a little bit confused. It means the Hamada is not the one book. It's like a series of 5 books, or
It's 5 topics in one book.
it will be. And do we have the book?
Absolutely.
I was looking.
So it's part of the series. Here's the series. You have to look for it. Does it say Mada on it? Or does it say? Here's Mishpatim, Nizikim, right? So
That would be like the Mada, and that would be
right, it would say
the
Mada.
5 different books with this. Oh, that was my question. Yeah.
You would find it here. I don't know if you could find Mada.
Then the book Shuvah will be under Mada.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
I got it. Because I have it at home and I wasn't sure.
You have the set.
Not a set, but I would love to.
Unfortunately, somebody took it out. Here it is. Here is the beginning of Mada. It starts with Hilchot Yisodei Torah. That's the first one. That's the first one in Mada, right? You see it on the chart? Yisodei Torah.
Yes.
Number 1 in Mada. So it doesn't actually say Mada on the outside cover. I apologize. It should have.
Yeah.
But there you have the Hilchot Yisodei Torah. The first volume of the Rambam is there. Yes.
Sometime later today, could the Rav show me where the Rambam's Siddur is in the book?
You can see exactly where it is based on your list. Do you not see where it is? Where would you look for it?
I don't know.
Number
Probably
7.
8.
Ahava.
2, 7. Book 2.
Okay.
Number 7 on the list.
Okay.
So you'd look for the Book of Ahava, which we're about to discuss right now. And there are other translations of the Rambam. For example, this one. They published a separate volume. They call it the Book of Adoration, which is their translation of love. So this is book 2 out of the 14 as a separate standalone volume. And in it, as you can see, it says Mishnah Torah Volume 2. It's volume 2. It's, in any case, you have a Hebrew-English. This is Hebrew on one side, English on the other. Hebrew-English. And at the back of it, at the end of the book, is going to be what's the last halacha? Halachot milah, the laws of circumcision. And after the laws of circumcision, you do not have the Seder HaTefillah. So unfortunately, this translation, we have 3 copies of it. This is the same thing, the Book of Adoration. That's just book 2 of the Rambam's series. But unfortunately, they don't have, I think they're all the same. I don't think they have, this is a translation by Moses Hayimson. They didn't put in the Seder HaTefillah. But in the Hebrew, you'll look in the end of the Book of Ahava. After Hilchot Milah, you'll find the Seder of the Rambam. Selected letters. Thank you. And in here, there's the letter to Yemen and the discourse on martyrdom. And what about the Rambam's schedule? Not in here. They didn't put that one. These are just 2 out of the letters, the 2 longest essays, which, but it doesn't have the letter we were discussing before. Thank you. Next, so the Laws of Ahava, what does that include? That Book of Ahava, that second volume. Kriyat Shema. Oh, well, we say in the Shema you should love God, so that makes sense. Shema is an act of love. What was it? We just finished. Tefillah and Birkat Kohanim, prayer, priestly blessing. Tefillah and mezuzah, Sefer Torah. They go together. We talked about them, and those are the holy objects in Judaism. Then there's Stam, good. Tzitzit. That's a mitzvah. That's like a daily mitzvah out of love of God. Brachot, daily stuff. That's the first Masechet, right? What is the Shas Shisha Sidrei Mishnah? How does it start? With brachot. Where is it in the Rambam? It's only in the middle of the second volume. You see, it's a totally different organization.
Clearly, it's not as important.
Important. You're right. There's a certain. The Rambam was making a statement by putting the book of knowledge first. Right? Everybody knows that he was like a rationalist, and was had very high respect for intellectual study and development. And this is one mark of it, is that he starts off with the book of knowledge before you get to the book of behaviors, right? If you were maybe a Chabad Shaliach, right? You're putting on tefillin people before they even know what God means, right? The actions come first. Right? That's not the approach here, right? Here, the Rambam definitely gives prominence to this, the philosophy of Judaism, if you will, right? He calls it the foundations of Torah and the proper behavior and all those more philosophical principles. That's primarily where they're discussed first in the first book. Second book, then it has Mila, circumcision, and finally, it really shouldn't be called number 7, but it does have the Rambam's Sidur, as we discussed. A question? Someone else? Do you want to ask? Or are you okay?
No.
Number 3. Number yeah.
So these are all written. All these books here. It's a compilation of books written by Rambam.
They're all right in front of your class of tea. That is a set of the Rambam. It's 14 books in 6 volumes.
Very nice.
Okay.
Nice list specifically.
That is what this list of. This is like a table of contents of those 6 books.
Rabbi, I hate to be that person, but there's 7 books here.
You missed. I'm sorry. You came half an hour late. We talked about it at length.
I did.
I'm sure you had good reason, but I'll just repeat and say that they added in an additional book.
Get married first before you
Moshe. They put in another book of the Rambam.
Who's they?
The publishers. The publishers who made this beautiful set, they added in a 7th book. Hirsch, stop it. It's disrupting. You were disrupting, and now you're disrupting. I love it that you're friends. But not in class. It's disturbing me.
Jewish women with each other.
Do it in the break. Do it in the break. Sorry.
Is this the book that they added?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. What is that book that they added? It's the Book of Commandments, his list of the 613 commandments, which was translated into English, and we just have it over there. But
this isn't in English.
Behind you, I almost pull out the book,
yes,
the book, the mitzvot
Yeah.
in English, the 2-volume blue one. That's the translation of the volume we're holding. It's not part of the Mishnah Torah, but many times it's published together with it. Yes.
I think I get confused because you said when we talk about this is about one book. Now you said it's about all of the book.
14 books. The
14
book is
books.
divided into 14 books, right? That's he calls them books,
Okay.
but they're volumes, right? If you will. This one he
this
calls
is-
it
this-
volume 2, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The Mishnah Torah is the work, divided into 14 books. Each book is divided into 3 to 10 sections. Each section has chapters, and each chapter has paragraphs.
Excellent.
Like that? Okay.
Yes, exactly. You got it.
And each paragraph has lines.
Each line has word,
Words.
and each word has letters, and each letter has strokes.
Yes.
Well done. Well done. I think we're getting it. We're getting it. Okay. The next third book, Book of Zmanim. Number 3 on your list. The Laws of Shabbat. Right? All the special times. The Laws of Eruvin, which is a rabbinic device that facilitates Shabbat observance. Interesting. Okay. Fine. That's an extension of the Laws of Shabbat. Number 3, Shvitat Asor in Hebrew means resting on the 10th. What does that refer to? Resting on the 10th? What did we learn yesterday? Which
Tevet.
festival happens on the 10th?
Yom Kippur.
Not Tevet. Yom Kippur, the 10th of Tishrei.
Tishrei.
10th of Tishrei, Yom Kippur. So he calls it, the laws of Yom Kippur are on resting on the 10th. Except for the temple service. The temple service on Yom Kippur gets its own set of laws in another section. It talks about the temple service. So it's not all the laws of Yom Kippur, but except for the temple service. Number 4, Yom Tov. Yom Tov, the laws of Yom Tov. Makes sense. Number 5, Chametz Umatzah. What does that talk about?
Chametz and
Passover.
Passover. Exactly. But it does talk about more than Chametz and Matzah. It actually talks
Talk
about
about all of Pesach.
the laws of Pesach. Exactly. Number 6, Shofar, Velulav, V'sukkah. It's interesting. He puts them together
Yeah.
in
Because they're
one.
connected.
Holidays of Tishrei.
They're both right. The shofar is used on Rosh Hashanah. The lulav and the sukkah are used on Sukkot, and they're sort of like additional tools that we use on these
Celebrate.
festivals.
Yeah.
The festival itself, where are you going to find the laws of the festival itself?
Zmanim.
In number 4, in Zmanim number 4, the laws of the Yom Tov, what you're allowed to do on that day, what you're not allowed to do on the day, right? How to cook, how not to cook, what those. But the laws of this unique, that's equivalent for all the 3 festivals. Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot all have the same rules of the rules, like the rules of Shabbat, the rules of Yom Tov. But each one has an additional instrument. Right? On Rosh Hashanah, you blow the shofar. On Sukkot, you shake the lulav and sit in the sukkah. And so he separates it off that way. And so these, you could call it, these are like the mitzvot, instruments of the holidays in number 6. Number 7, Skalim, interesting. Why he puts it there? What's Skalim about?
It's about exactly. It is my favorite. No,
Sorry?
it's about collecting money for the temple
Yeah.
when it existed.
Right, it's actually a mitzvah. It starts in the Torah. Everybody had to give half a shekel. Remember that? So this system continued and was developed later on by the rabbis. But it's based on that original mitzvah of collecting the shekels in the desert. Number 8. Now, why is that there? It's strange. There's been
Rosh Chodesh.
reams written about this order of the Rambam. Why did he put it there? And Kiddush HaChodesh, why is that in there? Well, it is times. You know, the calendar of the holidays is based on Rosh Chodesh. So it's sort of like a minor holiday, Rosh Chodesh also. So he puts it in there. And number 9 is fasts, where if you wanted to look up the laws of the 10th of Tevet, where would you find it? In the Rambam. In Tanya. In the book of
Fast.
times, in the section about Tanya fast. And then 10th is Hanukkah Megillah. It's also interesting. Do they go together?
Yeah.
How?
Yes.
How?
Because they are holidays of Ramadan.
Excellent. They're both
They celebrate
rabbinic
Ramadan.
holidays. He puts them together. That's the book of Zmanim. Next, book of Nashim.
That's
Women.
all about women. It's about
Do you
purity.
think it's about, does he talk about,
It's
you know,
lots of
men are
marriage
from
and
Mars,
stuff like that.
women are from Venus, and,
I
you know,
heard it in
that
reverse.
they
Why's it
talk in a
about-
different way, and you know, you have to listen to them and not give them
It
solutions.
seems to
Is
be.
that what this is about?
That,
It seems to be about relationships.
It doesn't. Well, it is about the
It's
technical matters
exclusively
of
so.
relationships. He doesn't talk too much. There is a little bit there. Actually, respect your wife and so forth. But it's the laws. This is a law book. This is not a self-help, relationship guide. But the laws is a good, very important structure to our lives. The laws include moral values and directives, and so you can learn a lot out of these laws. But essentially, it's a book of the laws of marriage, kiddushin, ketubah, gerushin, divorce, yibum v'chalitza, levirate marriage. If you will learn about that one day. Nara betula,
Can you explain
specific.
levirate marriage? What levirate? Specific the word levirate.
It means when someone marries his dead brother's wife.
Yibum.
King George
His wife
V.
died without children. The Torah has a mitzvah. It's an ancient custom in the world that the brother takes care of the widow.
It's an ancient custom in general. It's been ancient in Judaism.
Judaism as well, right? A few parshat in the Torah speak about it.
And then you can do chalitza in order to.
Chalitza is another option. It's a way out of it, really. Nara betula.
Clearly about more women.
Essentially, it's about infidelity, really. Infidelity. That's connected to the laws of women and marriage. And the number 5 is suspected infidelity, which is that's the section of Nashim. Let's move on. Kedusha. Fascinating. What would you think Kedusha speaks about?
Venus.
Probably Kedusha.
What does that mean? What would you
Holiness
expect to
in
talk
general.
How
about?
to live holy.
How to live holy. What does it mean to live
Well,
holy?
I would assume,
You would think about how many times you have to pray a day.
I would assume
How
that
you,
it was
how you
more
have
like
to wrap yourself up in a talit and do
Tahara.
meditations, maybe go off on a retreat to be holy. What does it mean to be holy? Judaism, it's amazing. This teaches us so much. You know what where the laws of holiness come in? It's the way we counter the 2 basic, strongest drives that make us animalistic. We're similar to the animals in our drive to eat,
Oh,
and we're similar to the animals in our drive for sex. And the way, if you want to be holy, we have to temper those. We have to rein those in. We have to use them in a holy way. Use them for part of our religious service to not be like animals. And that's why the laws of forbidden sexual relations is in the book of holiness. And that's number one. Number two is forbidden foods. And three, shchita, that's a extension of the forbidden foods regarding animal products. We're about to study that in our halacha class. Okay, number 6, hafla'ah. Fascinating. This is a mistaken translation into English. I beg of you, each and every one of you, take your pen and erase the word separation. The person who wrote this does not know Hebrew.
you can go Wikipedia and change it.
Maybe I should, but I don't do those kind of things. But maybe you do, so go for it. The word hafla'ah, it can have a connotation of a meaning of separation, but it actually, the word is used for speech.
So what would that have to do with?
Shavuot, Nedarim, Nazirot, and Erechim, they're all laws of oaths, vows to become a Nazirite, to give a donation to the temple. It's hafla'ah means speech. And mitzvot, which are activated by your speech. If you vow to do something, you've got to fulfill it, etc., etc. Okay, and if you vow to become a Nazirite, so then there's all sorts of laws of how to, fulfill that vow, and how long does it last, etc. There's donations to the temple. So this is number 6. It should say speech instead of separation. I apologize. It's just wrong. It's just wrong. I don't know who wrote this, but.
What will be a root of this?
You didn't write this, did you?
This came from Wikipedia.
I didn't. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Somewhere. I think maybe it's Wikipedia or one of those.
I was confused whether
I
you're
just
being
went on the
ironic
side.
or not.
No, I was literally telling you the truth. I don't know who wrote this. But, so Pele means wonder, and wonder is something that you stand at a distance from in astonishment when you see it. So.
There's like a
So when
bracha
you
for that.
say, when you pronounce something, when you bring it, when you verbalize an idea, in a way you're separating that idea from yourself. You're externalizing it and becomes its own entity. The words have their own meaning and import as separate from you yourself, and you're obligated to fulfill those words and so forth. So that's why maybe it comes from this concept of separation, of something wondrous which you're separated from, but the word means speech. It already took on a second meaning, even though I can explain to you now a little bit of it with the etymology, where it came from, why they use the same word for wonder and for separation and for speech. But basically there's 3 meanings of the same thing. That's the Hebrew wonders of the Hebrew language. You have the same root that has the different meanings. It happens in English too. There's many words which have different meanings depending on their context. Here is nothing to do with separation. It's speech. It means speech. Number 7, zira'im, seeds. So we saw that there's that's the name of the first order of the 6 orders of the Mishnah. According to the Rambam, it's one of his 14 books. But he discusses the laws of kilayim, forbidden mixtures, the laws of aniyim. It's actually a mistake. It should be matnot aniyim, the gifts to the poor. They're missing out a word there. Number 2, 7.2 is missing a word. Should be matnot aniyim, gifts to the poor.
On the board.
Sure. In English, right?
Yes.
Transliterated.
Not aniyim. Gifts to the poor. Fascinating. If you wanted to look for the laws of tzedakah, people have asked me in the past, I have to give 10% of my income. This guy stops me on the street. Do I have to give him money? How much do I have to give him? All those laws of tzedakah. Someone comes from another town, but there's poor people in this town. Who do you give first? All those laws of tzedakah. Where are you going to find them? You look through the whole thing. And the laws of money. Where are they found? They're found here in the book called seeds in the agricultural mitzvah. Why? Because the Torah.
back in the day,
Hmm.
the tzedakah was not kesef; it was food, it was seeds. It was giving someone the ability.
Well, I think
to
there was
eat.
always also people that gave
No,
coins,
I would
but
assume so.
money. But the Torah has specific mitzvot of in-kind donations,
Well, there's
which
no-
are required, requisite. We learned all about them. Meiser, Truma, and so forth. And
There's,
that's why it's here. Yeah,
Isn't there nowhere in the Torah that says you have to give money as tzedakah?
correct.
To the temple, there's
The half
rules
shekel
for
we
that,
talked about.
The
but
concept
not
of
for
money then
money
True.
is
to the poor.
different.
True, but you can do tzedakah. The Rambam writes about it there.
Tell
in
us
Right,
three
about-
ways.
That's why
You
it's
can do
in the book of
tzedakah with
seeds.
your body.
Give a shiur later.
You can help an old lady across the street.
Is that tzedakah?
That's tzedakah.
That's not
You
chesed?
can, it can fall into the same rubric. You can do tzedakah with your money, obviously, and you can do tzedakah with your words.
And with your work.
Sure. But the three parts of man's activities, you can do tzedakah with all of them, and so they're all there. Unfortunately, or strangely, they're in the book of agriculture of seeds. Zeraim. Moving ahead, Trumot, Maser, Sheni. It also, number 5 is missing a word. It should be Maaser Sheni. And I don't have to write it on the board because it's in number 4. Right, number 4 is actually should be Ma'asrot. Hilchot Ma'asrot in the Rambam, I believe. If you look in the Hebrew,
Number 4?
Zraim Hilchot. It's called the Hilchot Maaser. There must be different versions of the Rambam. There are different manuscripts of the Rambam. But anyways, if you look in the Hebrew list that I gave you in section 7, where it says Zraim, you can see that the Hebrew a fourth set of halachos is Maaser, and the 5th is Maaser Sheni Venet Ravai.
So number
So
4
it's-
should be Hilchot Ma'asrot.
That's correct. You don't have to say the word Hilchot each time because they're all start off with the word Hilchot. But Ma'asrot, it should be. But maybe there is a version that says so.
Rabbi, just to clarify, on the column on the right-hand side, there's a long line of numbers from the top to the bottom. Are those the pages?
Those are the page numbers. Yeah,
Those are not the paragraph numbers.
correct. Those are page numbers. But that's alphabetical as opposed to separated by topic, like the list that's to the left of it.
What? Sorry, and that is
The far right is alphabetical. Based on the
Alphabetical.
name of the halachot.
I just noticed that for Shemitah, the Rambam put it in book 7, section 7,
That is sweet.
which is
Very nice.
Just such a cute little.
I see what he did there.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Actually, as you can see, comparing it to the Hebrew, these titles are shortened. It should be the laws of Shemitah and Yovel. That's the name.
Maze Yovel.
Yovel is the Jubilee year. After the 7 cycles of Shemitah, there's a special year called the Jubilee year.
So technically, it's an 8-year cycle.
So laws of the
7
Shabbat
times
and-
7, and then 1. It's a 50-year cycle, technically.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry, repeat that one more time.
It's not an 8-year cycle. It's a 7-year cycle,
7-year cycle.
and then 1 additional year,
At
the 50th year.
So that would be after 7 complete cycles. There's 1 extra year.
Career. Correct.
So excuse me, Rob.
When is that year coming up? Or
We haven't been practicing that extra year
since the temple?
since the end of the first temple era.
Why? Just because?
No. It's all there's good reasons for everything. Because the psukim. First of all, it's our tradition, but the tradition is based on when it talks about the Jubilee year, it speaks about all of the Jewish people being on their estates in their land. And at the end of the first temple period,
Not just
10 of the
extra.
tribes were exiled.
Mhm.
And then, so we don't have any more in the second temple period. We didn't have any division of the land of Israel into each tribe being in its proper
So
place.
since the Babylonian exile, we have.
Since the Assyrian exile.
Sorry, the Assyrian exile. Yeah.
Correct. That's right. We haven't practiced the Yovel for quite a while.
So
And so we do have a cycle of 7 times 7 times 7, but we don't
We don't add that year.
we don't add that 50th year. And so that's why some people say Shemitah can't be biblical today because the biblical Shemitah year would be off because we're not doing the 50th year, right? If we were doing the real biblical Yovel, is what sets the
Plus.
proper year for the
So
biblical
they're saying to
Shemitah.
abolish Shemitah because there's no Yovel.
Not to abolish it, but to recognize that it's not a biblical level of obligation, and therefore we have a little more flexibility when it comes to
Interesting. I didn't know that.
putting it into practice.
So, excuse
It's a
me,
big
but-
difference if it's biblical or rabbinic, and
So-
that's a debate, of course, still today.
So you said that 7/7 should be laws of the sabbatical year and the Yovel year.
Correct.
Yovel. It's Yovel.
That's the way I write it in English, but it's
Just-
called the Jubilee year in proper English.
Just to roll back, sorry to stick on this point. Just for so the Shemitah we have right now, that is a rabbinic thing. It's not a biblical thing. Is that correct?
It's a machloket.
Mm.
Most rabbis hold that it's rabbinic, but there are some who hold it's still biblical.
Okay.
Okay.
Biblical, but it in some way shifted towards rabbinical in some of its aspects.
If it's biblical, it's biblical. I don't know what you mean.
But there's no Yovel year. What happened? That's
You just
Oh, they
explained.
say they're separate.
I know what I was being rhetorical.
Okay. Yeah. So this is a debate. It's a debate. We have to stop here because we ran out of time.
Oh,
There is an entire 7 more books because we only
This is
went
my
through
folder.
half. Good.
to be
And
continued tomorrow.
to be continued tomorrow. We'll just go through the overview, hopefully quicker tomorrow, and we'll get into Hilchot Shuvah of the Rambam. I'm going to print it up for you.
Wonderful.
I
The
love
last
printouts.
5 chapters or 6 chapters.
Thank you, Rabbi. This is awesome.
Done. You're welcome.
Thank you.